Do you ever feel like something is eating away at you, but you can't quite put your finger on what it is? If so, there's a good chance it might be fear. Fear likes to hide from us in all sorts of ways, and today we're going to uncover what many of those common, hidden fears are. I call them the 7 faces of fear, and I'm super excited for today's episode because it is the first in our aFearless series that we're going to be covering over the next few weeks. Welcome to The Joy Within. I'm Kyle Greenfield, and I believe that you have the ability to become calm, confident, and happy anytime that you choose. Some days, that's easier than others, but with the right tools and the right way of thinking, we can unlock incredible states of joy, peace, and well-being within us. So visit thejoywithin.org to get started today, so that together we can create a happier and more peaceful world. Welcome back to the Joy Within's podcast. Today, we're looking at the 7 hidden faces of fear. We'll take a look at why fear can be so difficult to work through because it disguises itself into so many different areas of our lives that often don't even really look like fear. And if what I'm talking about today resonates with you, I also want you to know that in January, I will be running a small group workshop called aFearless 2025, which will take these 7 hidden faces I'm about to talk about and show you how to apply them practically, so you can stop struggling against yourself, stop letting fear get in the way, and start feeling inspired and propelled towards your goals for next year. It's free for the Joy Within members, and you can register now at thejoywithin.org/fearless. So that said, let's dive in. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of these 7 hidden faces of fear, how they hold us back, and what we can do to confront them. Then, over the next couple of weeks, we will do a deep dive into each one of them, because they all have their sneaky little tricks that they use against us, and we have to be able to spot them and call them out on it in order to begin to work through whatever that underlying fear is. But first, I want to be clear about why I think this is so important. Because if you are struggling to reach your goals, if you feel stuck or torn or worn down in your pursuit of whatever it is that's important to you, then I can almost guarantee that you are struggling with one of these hidden fears. The challenge for most of us is that we don't realize it. We don't recognize our problem as a fear that we have to overcome because these secret faces or these hidden faces don't look like fear. And we'll talk more about that, but know that they often don't make us feel nervous or afraid in the usual sense, because these faces represent the ways in which fear tricks us into thinking that our fear is reasonable. Because we don't see it as fear, we start to believe that these inner blocks are rational. The fear tricks us into thinking something like, oh no, I'm not afraid. There's just this other thing that's holding me back and blocking my progress. But that's one of the mechanisms that our fear uses. It disguises itself so that we can't recognize it. We can't see it for what it is. And if we can't see it, we can't do anything about it. So that fear just persists. Before we take a look at what these 7 faces are, I want to generalize it for a moment because I think this is super important. And then we can zoom back in and dive into these hidden manifestations of fear. So one of the things I have learned in my many years of dealing with negative thoughts is that the structure, the fundamental form that our thoughts take is dramatically different when we're working with negative versus positive thoughts. And by the way, this is like advanced level awareness of thought, so if this is a little bit confusing for you, don't worry about it. I just think it can be helpful to have a big picture view. So, over the years, I've come to view the structure of negative and positive thoughts differently. Positive thoughts are pure, they're simple, they're not hiding anything. But negative thoughts are sinister, they're cunning and manipulative. And they often have 1,000 little tricks up their sleeve that they try to hide from us in order to keep us in a negative state. And I actually think that these negative thoughts have to do this. They have to be more complex. They have to be deceptive. Because our natural state is to be positive and joyful. And if the negative thoughts didn't have these talons to latch onto us, if they didn't sink their claws in, I think they would just bounce off of us. And we'd just be blissful all of the time. So they have to have a way to attach. Now, the application of this means that I think it really helps if we can think of fear as sort of like an ultimate evil mastermind. And it has all of these different masks, different henchmen that we have to battle. It's just like how in the later Bond movies, all of the Daniel Craig ones, all of the villains were interconnected, and Bond had to keep battling the same organization over and over again to subvert all of these different little plots. At first, it was just, here's a villain, there's a villain, and maybe only a very loose thread connecting them, like only the illusion that they might be connected. But it wasn't until later that MI6 even realized that they were all the same organization. And there is one scene that I love, where one of the villains, I think his name was Mr. White, but I'm not sure about that. Anyway, he turns to Judi Dench and laughs and says, "Here we were, worried that MI6 is after us and around every corner, and it turns out you don't even know we exist." And Judi Dench just turns back and quips, "Well, we do now, and we're fast learners." And that's what I think these 7 hidden faces of fear can do for you. You might not think of them as fear now, but as soon as you flip that switch and know what to look for, you will start to see them in this new light. And then you can't not see it, which means so many of our little hangups, our inner blocks, become easier to unravel. So that said, let's take a look at what these 7 fears are. If you're dealing with stress and negativity in your life, the Joy Within can help. Our membership program provides a clear path to reduce stress and cultivate more joy in your life by showing you how to get out of your own way. When we learn to quiet that annoying little voice in our head, we allow a natural sense of joy, peace, and well-being to shine from within. Our program activates that joy within you by combining clear insights and simple actions with personal accountability and a plan that we customize to work for you. Best of all, it's free to get started. So head over to thejoywithin.org/join to sign up today. That's thejoywithin.org/join. Now, back to the show. Okay, so the 7 hidden faces of fear are indecision, uncertainty, doubt, hesitation, procrastination, overwhelm, and attachment. I want to go through each of them quickly right now, and as I said, over the next couple of weeks, we'll do a deeper dive into them, so we can see how they really work and what we can do about them. But hopefully, for now, just seeing the high level of these will help you to view them in a new way, and maybe spot a few tendencies that you might have, which we can then release. So, firstly, indecision equals fear. By the way, for each of these, I want you to say it just like that to yourself. It reinforces this concept. Indecision equals fear. Uncertainty equals fear. Doubt equals fear, and so on. That will help you flip into seeing these states in this way. Anyway, indecision equals fear. When we are indecisive about something, almost always we are trying to reason our way around a fear that we hold. And to be clear, I'm not talking about the earlier stages of decision making. I'm not talking about gathering information or considering our options or weighing pros and cons of things. I'm talking about when we've taken those earlier steps and we should be able to decide, but for whatever reason, we can't. Or we make a decision and then we bounce back from it. We feel torn. We pinball back and forth about what we want to do. The reason this is fear-based is because we always know on an intuitive level what we need to do. What path is right for us? The decision is always there within us. But there is something about that decision that scares us. And that's when we begin to think rationally of reasons that we should take a different path. A path that isn't as scary. And the tricky thing is that very often those reasons are valid. They appear to make perfect sense to us. But if we can identify when they originate from a fear about the choice we know we should make, then we can feel clearer and more decisive, rather than torn and spinning in circles. So we have to be able to suss that out. Next, uncertainty equals fear. This is distinct from indecision, because by uncertainty, I mean uncertainty of outcome. And this comes down to trust. In every moment, we either trust in the outcome that we want, or we don't. It's that simple. Trust is always absolute. When we feel uncertain, it is an indication that we fear a negative outcome. This can take a variety of forms, but it ultimately comes down to not really trusting, not really believing in whatever it is that we think that we want. The secret is that we don't need to know how or when or what the specifics of that outcome will be in order to trust in it. But if we don't know with absolute certainty that it is coming, that there is a positive outcome there for us, somehow, in some way, then that's a clue that we need to investigate the fears that are keeping us from feeling certain. Number 3, doubt equals fear. By doubt here, I mean self-doubt. If uncertainty is about lack of trust in the outcome, doubt is about a lack of trust in ourselves, a belief that is some form of, I can't, or I don't have what it takes, or that's just not me. But those doubts are fear talking. Often, this gets into really deep-seated fears of failure, what it would mean if we were truly to go after what we want, only to find that it doesn't work out, only to find we're not as good as we thought that we might have been. This fear of failure is stronger than our self-belief, and that fear stops us in our tracks. It's like a deer in headlights. It blinds us from seeing that even if a far-off big goal isn't possible right now, that we always have the ability to take the next step towards it. There is always something we can do. But the doubt stops us from seeing that. It persuades us to just sigh and think, I guess I can't do that. It's insidious, and I think that this one is really, truly evil, and we have to do whatever it takes to get past that doubt. Next up, hesitation equals fear. Whenever we know what to do, but we don't immediately act on it, that's a clue that we have some fear about that action lurking within us somewhere. I think this one is tricky because it can be very subtle and hard to spot within ourselves. And I think almost everyone is guilty of this sometimes. It's that feeling of, yes, I'm going to go do XYZ, but wait a minute, is that actually the best next step? Or maybe it feels like, yeah, I'm going to go do that, but first I'm just going to go grab a coffee. Or yes, I'm moving forward with this, but I'm going to take a break first. Those little gaps between the inspiration to action and actually taking that action are where our fear lurks. But the good news is, I also think that this is maybe the easiest of the 7 to recover from, because we can just train ourselves into a few simple new habits. If we can uncover that fear, then we can release it, and our actions will flow more effortlessly. We'll feel more inspired and on point, and it's just about training ourselves to act in that way. The bigger challenge is when hesitation bleeds into procrastination. But I like to separate these out because I think they're fundamentally different. With hesitation, we don't have a major block. It's more about 1,000 little momentary gaps, little pauses. With procrastination, however, it's much more pronounced. This is when you don't just second guess your next step or grab a coffee first. It's when you outright go do something else. You distract yourself. You avoid what you're trying to do. I don't have to belabor this because we all know what procrastination feels like. But the key question to ask yourself here is, what are you trying to avoid? Often, the first level answer that you'll get is something along the lines of, I just don't feel like it today, or I don't really want to do this. But if we probe a bit deeper, underneath those immediate responses are deeper fears. The thing that we're trying to avoid is the very thing that we need to overcome in order to get where we want to be. This can be a tough pill to swallow, but it is absolutely essential. We have to face the fear. We have to walk through it, because whatever it is that we want is always just on the other side of that wall. Number 6, overwhelm equals fear. I get a lot of pushback on this one. When we're stressed and overwhelmed, we often don't realize why we feel that. We think it's because we have too much to do, but it's not. It's not about the tasks in front of us. Overwhelm masks a belief that we don't have enough time to do the things we truly need to do. It is one way in which we do not trust our own natural timing, our inner guidance about what needs to happen. The mind creates a string of beliefs about tasks or projects that it thinks it needs to accomplish, events that need to fall into place. But that need, especially when it's coupled with a sense of urgency, is a guise for fear. And what we'll do to flip this is to start to invert it. We'll look at what we're afraid would happen if that need were to fall through. Admittedly, we can't usually do this when we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed. We have to do it from a neutral state. So it's not an immediate fix in the moment. But identifying that fear is the key to unlocking the real problem and the inner shifts that we need to make to overcome it. Lastly, attachment equals fear. I think this one becomes fairly obvious if we think about it, but we don't usually take the time to recognize it within ourselves. The things that we feel most attached to are often the things that govern our inability to move forward. It doesn't matter whether it's a material object, a person, a career, or a major life decision of some sort. We become attached to different aspects of our identity, and when we're truly attached to something, we often cannot even imagine what our lives would look like without it. Sometimes that serves us. Attachment doesn't have to be unhealthy, but very often it blinds us to the areas in which we most need to grow. And as I said, I think the biggest challenge here is learning to identify the many ways in which we become attached without even realizing it. So there you have it, the 7 hidden faces of fear: indecision, uncertainty, doubt, hesitation, procrastination, overwhelm, and attachment. Like I said, we'll be tackling each of these in more detail over the next few weeks. And if you really want to move forward, you have to do whatever it takes to release these fears. Because our fears are always the biggest constraints we put on ourselves. They're the biggest blocks that we face. So if you're tired of spinning in circles, repeating the same patterns, I really encourage you to head over to thejoywithin.org/fearless and sign up for Fearless 2025. Like I said, it's a small group workshop I'm running in January, and we'll really get into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to unravel these fears, so you can feel more inspired and more aligned as you step into the new year. It's free for the Joy Within members. You just have to register at thejoywithin.org/fearless to sign up. And if you're interested, I recommend you sign up now, because it's only going to be open to a small class of people. That's the only way this works, is to do it in a small group. And I'm just going to take that on a first come, first serve basis. So that's thejoywithin.org/fearless. That's it for today. Thank you so much for your time. Know that I love you and I appreciate you wherever you are. And if today's episode resonated with you, know that it's also going to resonate with the people you know and love. And really, it's a bit selfish if you're just listening to this and you're not passing it on, not sharing it with others. I know that's a bit tongue-in-cheek to say, but seriously, please share. I believe we all deserve to be happy. We all deserve to feel unshackled from our fears. And I believe we all have a responsibility to help others in whatever way that we can. So please tell a friend, share the podcast on social, whatever works for you. I will be eternally grateful to you, and in return, I'll keep putting out more free stuff just like this. So thanks so much. Head over to thejoywithin.org/fearless to sign up for Fearless 2025, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to The Joy Within. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please do what you can to spread the word. I believe that we all deserve to feel calm, confident, and happy literally every single day. But with everything that's going on in the world, we need to work together to remind ourselves of that in as many little ways as we can. So please, pass this along to the people you care about. Email a friend, share it on social, do whatever feels right for you, so that hopefully, together, we can create a little more peace in our crazy modern world.